Hi, I'm Carolyn Tomei, and this is Milwaukie Today. I have two wonderful guests with me today. It's going to be our future mayor, Don Graf, and his lovely wife, Dorothy, longtime residents in Milwaukie and longtime members of the Ardenwald Neighborhood Association. Welcome, Dorothy and Don. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Now, Don, you're going to be Milwaukee's interim mayor for 2 months. How are you feeling about taking that position on?
Well, I think it's the fact that it's only for 2 months is a saving grace, but it's a responsibility that I'm quite aware of. I know that the city has had its problems, and with the recall and all, it has created another problem. But hopefully we can get through this in the 2 months and get to the elected council. And then in the fall, there will be another election for the 3 positions. So it's going to be a task, but I think it'll all come out okay.
Good, good. I'm glad you feel that way. What do you see happening in the next 2 months?
Well, primarily, I think it'll be taking care of business in the ordinary businesses that the city does. I don't expect that we will be making any major policy decisions because with an appointed council, with the majority of the council being appointed, I think it is better to put off any major decisions on policy until the elected council is installed.
Right. I agree with you, Don. I think that's a good idea. Now, Don, the role of the mayor is somewhat different from the councilor's role. Tell me what you will be charged with in addition to what the councilors will be doing.
Well, I'm not sure that the mayor's position is that much different, especially for this short-term deal. Normally, of course, the mayor represents the city and is involved in other activities and duties and things in that representation. But for this period of time, I don't think that we'll have much time to get into anything extra. I think the mayor's job will be to keep things as smooth as possible and have as a little controversy problems as we can get away with. We certainly will be listening to the public in whatever they want to present to us, but as far as the mayor's position for this 2-month period, I don't think it's going to be very outstanding.
Well, I think you're going to be an outstanding mayor, that's for sure, Don. Now, you've done this before. Tell us about your history with Milwaukie, especially with the city council.
Well, we built our house in Ardenwald in 1942. So, and we have lived there ever since. We live in an area, our property is 100 by 265 feet, so we have some area out in the back of woods and things like that. I joined in activity in the community club, the Ardenwald Community Club, which is a little different than the Ardenwald Johnson Creek Neighborhood Association that exists now. But Dorothy and I were very active in that, and I still am the president of the Ardenwald Community Club, although it doesn't have any meetings or any activities at the moment. We sponsored a number of things. Ardenwald was not part of Milwaukie at that time.
Oh, really?
No, it was an independent area between Multnomah County and Clackamas County. And I'm trying to remember, do you remember when we joined Milwaukie?
But one time they had an election to annex to Portland. And we had our little one was 3 or 4 years old, and well, that kind of dates it, 50 years. Something like that. Anyway, there were 2 little children next door that they always played together and stuff. And the next morning after the election, when it went down, they didn't annex to Portland. The children jumped up and down and were happy because they didn't have to move to Portland. They'd been worrying, and we didn't know they'd been worrying about that. They thought they'd have to
move into the big city.
But then later there was an election to annex to Milwaukie, and we did that, but that was quite a few years later.
Why do you think your area decided to move into Milwaukie and not to Portland?
I think we felt that the small town connection was far better for us than belonging to Portland. And we campaigned quite vigorously for joining Milwaukie rather than going to Portland.
Good.
We were involved through the community club with neighborhood activities. We put out an Ardenwald newspaper for 15 years, and there are copies of that in the museum in Milwaukie for, I think, 13 years.
Great.
And while we were involved in these neighborhood activities, we were meeting at the school. That was our meeting place. And we had an election for school representatives, and we had a write-in vote just sponsored by our community club, and we got an elected a person from our area, Carl Reiser, elected to the school board just on a write-in vote.
Wow, that took a lot of work.
Yeah, we actually, he didn't serve the term because we felt that it was kind of a wake-up situation rather than getting him in there. So he didn't serve for that 2 years, but he did run later and got elected. And then later on, I served on the school board, the Milwaukie 1C board, for 10 years.
10 years.
Before I got into the city activities. And after I got off of the school board, then I thought I'd try for the city activities. And I got elected to the city council in '65. And I served 10 years at that time, 5 years as mayor. And then I was off for a couple of years, and then I went back and served as a councilman for 4 years again.
What were some of the things that happened when you were on the council and when you were mayor?
Well, there were, the school consolidation was one thing, where the Milwaukie 1C school district was absorbed into the high school district. That, of course, was not a city activity, but well, there's quite a bit of growth. There were some annexations. There was a movement at one time to form a new city by the name of Milwaukie that would have included the town center and up to or down south to Gladstone and all the area in between.
And that would have included Milwaukie?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Really?
And I thought that was a good idea because there were a lot of services there that could be provided by the city on a larger basis than the individual. There were so many individual boards, fire districts, water districts, sewer districts, and all this sort of stuff that could have been combined into one, and it would have been more efficient. But people like Milwaukie, and the opposition played on that very strongly, and so it went down to defeat. But
yeah, that would have been interesting, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. If at this point, because of course there wasn't the town center east of 82nd at that time.
No.
So that would have been interesting if the town center had developed after McLaughlin was formed. And it's sort of like the tail wagging the dog, you know, with all the business out there. Poor little Milwaukie, you would wonder how that would have turned out.
Well, that would have been a good industrial base for the tax base for the city, and that was one of the things that I thought was a strong point.
Right.
Warehouses out there, Safeway and Fred Meyer's and those out there.
Yeah.
The sewer plant was another thing that happened for you.
Oh yes, the
Off
sewer.
the waterfront.
Yeah, along the waterfront, and that happened while I was on the council. We were told that and promised that there would be no odor from the plant down there, and since then we found out that was a mistake. That, they have not been able to get away from that. So that's one of the things that I'm a bit sorry about. That it was a logical place to put it, in that the drainage was all that way, and it was a space that was available and all. So it was put in, but I'm sorry now that it was there. It is there.
Yes, I think we all are, but hindsight is much more clear than looking into the future.
And those outfits that do those things have a way of overpowering any feeling that you have about those things. I mean, you know, you don't really want it there, but you can't fight that.
Sometimes it feels that way, doesn't it? Yeah, even though you think this doesn't make any sense, folks, but sometimes because of the powers that be, things just happen. What was there before? Do you remember?
Nothing.
Yeah, there wasn't anything there. There were,
Wasn't there a gravel pit or something?
The logging thing.
Logging?
Well, they did have where they dumped the logs there. That was there before. But otherwise, it was just undeveloped area right along the river there.
It seems to me that because I've lived here 32 years before it went in, but it seems to me that there had been some kind of a gravel operation there. I sort of remember the noise and the dust from that, and barges coming up. I don't know if that's where they dumped the gravel from somewhere else, because you wouldn't have gotten it there.
That was farther up the river, rather than right in that area.
Station? By Island Station?
Well, I think it was farther up than that even.
We'll have to go back and check our history books.
Yeah.
Now, Don, you mentioned about the Ardenwald Club was different from the Ardenwald Neighborhood Association. Could you two tell us a little more about that? What did you do? It's always been fascinating to me. And you had a building, right?
Yes.
Yes. The
Bought property on 32nd first.
Yes, we did actually. We bought a lot on 32nd Street, where Lysek's store is now.
Yes.
But we bought one piece of property there. Lysek's wanted to expand. They had a little grocery store across the street there, and they wanted to expand, so they bought the property from us so that gave us enough to be able to buy a piece of property up off of across from the school, Ardenwald School. And we had the same kind of problems that exist now as far as participants are concerned. It took us probably 10 years or so with volunteer labor to build that building. And we'd sponsor, we had all sorts of activities to help raise money for it too. We had card parties up at the school, and those were pretty well attended.
At home we had card parties.
We had card parties at our home and at other homes in the neighborhood, and carnivals that were sponsored by the community club. The community club was the contact that we had with the county government, because we were just part of the county then, and Also, we had some contacts with the city, Leonard Mullen, some of those people when they were involved in the city activities here. We finally, of course, with annexation, a lot of the problems that we were taking care of individually with our committees and things were taken over by the city, and we didn't have to take care of those ourselves. When we had problems, we'd go running to the city to get them taken care of. Sometimes they were, and occasionally it took a long time. But yeah, we had quite a few people that were involved. We weren't competing with television at that time.
Yes.
You know, and
one of the biggest things we had were March of Dimes programs at the school, and we had a program that each organization in the community was asked to bring in a good act of some kind. The PTA and the Garden Club and the Scouts and all those people. Each one was responsible for bringing in one act. And it was amazing what some of them brought. And the auditorium at the school was filled with standing room only for those programs.
Isn't that wonderful?
We had a lady in the community, a young woman, who had polio and was in a wheelchair. And everyone respected them and made it kind of their thing that they could do, and they supported it, and they were wonderful. We had several of them different years.
That's great.
we had a Greater Ardenwald Symphony Orchestra that was in effect there for a couple of years, I guess, before we disbanded. But we put on several performances.
They took a recording of the Poet and Peasant Overture, and Don timed it down to seconds, that the clarinets played for so many seconds and the violins played for so many, through the whole thing. And then the men built their instruments out of sewer pipes and cigar boxes and hacksaws and all kinds of things. And it was so funny. It was so funny. Don was the director.
The maestro.
And he ended it with a plumber's friend, directing with a plumber's friend.
How could you get a tune out of all of those?
Well, the recording.
We played.
You played the recording.
We played the recording, and then.
But they had it timed, and they practiced enough. In those days, they had time to build their instruments, and they had time. They didn't watch all the ball games that people do now, and it was so funny and so good. It was just playing.
Oh yes, and playing together as a group.
Yeah.
We had people who were known to the community,
Yeah, the principal of the school and people like that.
Right.
Things that where they were active in.
And they dressed for the occasion. One not young, but one fellow, very, very slightly built fellow, borrowed his neighbor's coveralls, and they were humongous. And he got his violin bow tangled up with the suspenders and all of those foolish things. But it was such fun. I wish people could do those fun things now. The joy of living is kind of different now.
That's a good point, Dorothy. You mentioned television. Here we are on television.
Yeah.
Because it's the medium, of course, nowadays.
That's it.
But look at how things were before. We all sat and watched our own little box in the house, and people found entertainment going to card parties at each other's houses, putting together performances like this, having the March of Dimes. The communities, I was just thinking, it was so amazing that you could raise the money to build a building when the neighborhood associations have a hard time getting any money for any of their activities. And here you bought a lot and you built a building. You just couldn't do that nowadays. And that's because so many people work together to do all of these things, which were fun, which built a sense of community, and everybody knew each other, and
And
you
it
were
gave our
supportive.
children such a good basis for their lives.
Oh, yes.
The fun of it and the responsibility and the parades and that sort of thing.
Right.
It
Yes.
started them out on a good
Right,
plane.
and getting them involved with their community, and
Yeah.
as you say, taking on some responsibility for the community. Yes.
Dorothy's background, her folks and all, her
We were-
mother's side came from Scotland, and so we have two boys that play the bagpipes.
Oh.
We have three boys altogether, and the older two play the bagpipes and still do. And they were in the Portland Pipe Band, and
they were
played in
10
the-
and 12. They marched in their first Rose Festival parade.
Oh,
with the
isn't that
bagpipes.
something?
With the band.
That's great.
That's been a good connection for us through the years too. That we've gone to the Scotch activities,
The Highland.
Highland games, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Have you been back to visit the home place in Scotland?
We've been 3 times to Scotland.
Good.
Yes. Once with my sister and her husband, and they're both gone now. And that was a joy. And once with some friends, and once on a tour.
Good. And where in Scotland is your family from?
Well, Montrose, and we have a picture frame now. Our son lives in the house where his uncle lived and where my sister lived, and right next door to us. And we have a tapestry that was done with silk and pettipoint kind of thing
Oh.
that my grandmother did in finishing school in Arbroath in, 1843 or something like
Oh,
that.
my. What a
It's-
treasure.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. It's
Oh.
just beautiful.
Yes. How lucky to be able to have that.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
And our son now our middle son has moved in there. The other two live in Tacoma, but he has moved in next door now, and he put plaid carpeting on the dining room and living room floors.
All right.
And he's the one who had the pub down in Milwaukie for a while.
No, that was
David.
David.
Yes.
Yes.
David and Larry. We know
Yeah.
that story, don't we?
That's a good one.
David and Larry show.
Right. Okay, Dorothy, now which pub did he have in
The
Milwaukee?
Piper's Pub in
The
Milwaukie,
Piper's
down
Pub.
near the
North end of town,
Oh.
just beyond
the spa and the
Yes.
and the
it's now a lodge building.
pizza
Right.
parlor.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
Pietro.
I didn't know that your son had that.
Yes,
Well, that's
that
great.
was
The
his-
Piper's Pub. What a great
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
You know, it's not too late. I think that you ought to have your son piping tonight when you are sworn in, Don.
Well,
Probably would if we asked him.
I think that would be great.
His son, his younger son, he has 2 sons, and the younger one is going to Lewis and Clark this year, the first year, and he is going to have somebody bring him down from there tonight to come to the meeting
Oh, good.
because he wants to be in on the history of his grandpa.
Good. You bet.
It is.
You bet. And what a history you have. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's been a good life,
Yes.
full of
60 years.
yes
We just celebrated our 60th anniversary
in August.
in August.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Isn't that marvelous?
Been a good several years.
Several years. Yeah. I've got to tell you, whenever your names are brought up anywhere in the community, and especially since you had applied to be the mayor, the interim mayor, and since you've been selected, all we hear are wonderful things about both of you and what honorable, ethical people you are.
Well, that's nice to know.
It is indeed.
I think we better get a copy of this.
You should
Have it on
too.
record.
And I think that can be arranged.
That's all good.
Our children are certainly well pleased that one of the couples in Tacoma sent us a chrysanthemum plant yesterday.
Oh.
Sent it to Don
Oh,
as
that's
his honor.
His honor. Good.
Oh, they're pleased. Yeah.
Good.
Just washed it and I can't do a thing.
I know. I feel that way too.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter if I've just washed it or not.
Yeah.
Dorothy, I know that you had a huge role in starting the Ardenwald Parade, which now is a huge event in the Ardenwald neighborhood. Tell us how that started.
I was working out in the front parking area out by the street in the yard, pulling weeds, I suppose, blackberries or something. And this lady from down the street came by with 4 children trailing along, one of them on a tricycle and the rest just coming when they got there. I said, "Are they all yours?" And she said, "Yes." And we had 3. One of them was a babe at the time and too small to be in the parade that year, I guess. But anyway, I said, "Well, we should have a parade," because it looked like a parade with the way hers were staggered. And she was on her way to the store up the street. And I said, "We should have a parade." And so by fall, we had a parade organized. And we were afraid to look at each other when 150 to 200 children, dressed in everything ridiculous you could think of, came to the schoolyard to start out the parade. And there was a band. One of the men was part of a Legion group or something, and they had a little drum and bugle corps or something, and they were the band. And we had 2 of our boys and the neighbor boy carry flags at the beginning of the parade. We got them blue pants and made red jackets for them.
Oh,
And they carried the flags. And then it took off at that moment.
And how many years ago was that,
Well,
Dorothy?
we celebrated our 50th 2 years ago.
Isn't that something? 52 years. And now it is a great event.
The school principal that year, the 50th, was just delighted that this was going to go on, and they added a few things to it. I mean, their input and got the children excited. We made little soldiers. I drew a little soldier with the blue pants and a red jacket and the gold bars across and stuff. And then we made hats for these flag bearers out of oatmeal cartons. And they were red with a black visor and a chin deal. And this, at the 50th, the community club gave 3 flags to the school. They are kept at the school, and they're for the parades. They can use them any way they want later for other things if they want to. But the community club gave them 3 flags to start out the parade with 3 children.
Oh, that's great.
It's just been a joy. And as I say, my neighbor and I were afraid to look at each other for fear we'd cry when they started marching down the street. They were so pleased.
Oh, of course. Now, how many children do you think are involved in the parade? How many were involved in the 50th?
Well, 100 or more.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think with the school backing the way they did, they started serving hot dogs before the thing for a very small fee, and the people sat on the grass and ate hot dogs before the parade started. And then the Legion, did they provide the ice cream some of the years?
I don't think so. Most of it was done by the community club. The community club sponsored it for about 15 years, and then it went to
the Mothers Club did it for a while.
Yeah.
And that included the 2 of us who had started the thing.
Good for you, Dorothy.
So we never stopped.
Good.
And then B. Hall took over for a while because it looked as though it might fade. And so she worked with the school and made the contacts and arranged for the high school band to come and play.
Good.
And so now they come each year.
And when is it? What time of year?
It's second Saturday after school starts.
And it was never rained out.
Isn't that
Not
something?
once.
Oh, you have a friend somewhere.
Somewhere. Oh, absolutely. And the little principal up at the school, Sally Leitz, is it?
Leet, yeah.
She said, "I know now, if my son presents himself as wanting to have a wedding outside sometime, I'm going to tell him when to have it."
That's wonderful.
Because remember one time it was raining on Friday, and we called the school and wondered what we should do, and decided between us that we would wait till morning, and the morning was fine.
Oh, yep. You've got somebody there in back of you. You know, our time is up.
Oh my goodness.
I always worry, am I going to be able to fill up a half hour? We could fill up 2 hours. I mean, I didn't get to some of the questions I wanted to ask you about your families and your backgrounds and what kind of work you did. This has just been marvelous. I appreciate so much you coming, and I'm looking forward to working with you, Don, the next 2 months.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it, too.
Good. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for watching. This is Milwaukie Today with Carolyn Tomei and our guest, Don Graf, and his lovely wife, Dorothy. And I want to remind you again that this show airs on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.